Welcome to the Glowing Skin series. I'm Christine Ho, and today I have KC Craichy. He is the founder of Living Fuel. So hello, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Christine, so nice to be here.
Oh yes, thank you so much. It's so nice to have you here as well. So please, tell us your own personal story.
Well, Living Fuel was a product of necessity. You know, they say necessity is the mother of invention. My wife, Monica, who was Miss Florida and Miss Florida USA and competed both Miss America and Miss USA, she's just a magnificent woman, came down almost like a cold, but came down with anxiety and clinical depression with suicidal thoughts. So her lifestyle literally had to change like instantly. So she was like confined to the room and so on. It was the weirdest thing. But so we did what most people would do, is we took her to a conventional medicine doctor, family doctor, and they were like saying, oh yes, we've seen this, and they handed me a book. It said the book's called Anxiety Disorder, and they said it's new, we've just found out about this, it's panic attacks and it's depression, whatever. And so I'm asking a lot of questions. I said, well, how do you treat it? And they said, well, we're going to put her on some meds, Xanax and Zoloft, and give her psychotherapy for a psychiatrist, and she should be fine. And I kept asking questions like, how long is she going to be on drugs? And they said, well, we don't know, this is new. And it's like, she can be normal, they said, live a normal life on these meds, which was quite the contrary. Within a couple of weeks of taking these meds and going to psychotherapy, my wife said to me, I cannot keep this up. This is not going to work. I know that there's no way that these drugs are making me zoned out. I don't feel right, and this just can't be. And she said, and sitting on the couch and talking to some dude I don't know makes no sense whatsoever. So she said even the Band-Aid was awful. So it really was at that point where I decided I was going to dive in the literature, and I wasn't coming out without an answer. So at the time, I was the CEO of a medical device company, and I basically hired my replacement, and I resigned, and I literally was on a mission to save my wife. And so over a 10-year period of research and trial and error, our company was born, my best-selling books were born, the philosophies which we use to help many thousands of people overcome their own health situations were born, and of course my wife is Superwoman again and hadn't had a drug in 20 years plus. So this was the foundation of my understanding. Prior to that, I was an overweight child, and I had to figure out how to overcome that, but long before Monica. But you put all these things together, and you start looking at, how Western medicine treats disease, and it's really a symptomatic approach. If your finger hurts, I'm going to give you something for your finger, and if something wrong with your heart, I'll give you heart meds. And it's just very, it doesn't even make sense when you start considering the miraculous processes that the body all ties together. So we have 12 major body systems depending on how you slice them, and skin is one of them. And interestingly, these same approaches that built Monica back and restored her health are the same ones that are good for your cardiac function or your performance or your hair, or your skin, your nails, your digestion, your elimination. It all is very connected, and they say the knee bone is connected to the hip bone, and the hip bone is connected. It all does work together, and it's really fascinating how the smarter we get in science, the farther away we get removed from that. And so during this process, not only did I find nutritional answers, which are extremely significant for the skin, but I also found there were 7 things that kept popping up in the literature. 7 things. If you manage these 7, you're going to have abundant life. And if you don't, you're going to have consequences. That's just as that simple. And so the 7 things I'll run through them fairly quickly: hydration, nutrition, exercise, stress, sleep, environmental hazards, and meditation and prayer. And so interestingly, if you're deficient in any one of these, and right now the viewers are, based on my own personal research, are deficient in at least 4 of the 7 and quite low in those, and if not more, that when you realize the effect that these things have on your health, like if you don't sleep, even if you're in the name of getting up early for exercise, it's going to affect your stress levels. If you affect your stress levels, it's going to affect your hormone levels. If you affect your hormone levels, it's going to affect your skin. When you consider each one of these things work together, I mean, even being at the stress relief of meditation and prayer, there's so much research on that. There's so much research on hydration, skin and hydration. Some people think that's the only thing that we need to do for our skin, but they don't realize that nutrition plays a magnificent role. And so when you put stuff in your body that can help your skin dramatically versus putting stuff in your body that destroys your skin, it's a wild difference. Okay, and so I'm trying to bring us all back to skin, but hair, skin, nails, those all really are the same play nutritionally, and even in your health. I mean, stress, you see gray hair, you see wrinkled skin, you see, stress marks in the skin, you see lack of sleep, bags under the eyes. I mean, you consider how many things affect, even in that little area, your skin. It's quite dramatic. So getting down in the more technical area, yes, hydration, if you go with the 7th, hydration is hugely important for the skin, but if you're basically drinking things that dehydrate, and you're also taking in things that, like for instance, if your main hydration source is Coke or Diet Coke or even juices, you're going to have consequences in your skin, because sugar is one of those things that actually that age the skin prematurely. I say the skin, it ages every part of the body prematurely. Interestingly, in the 80s, they were really heavy on this calorie restriction with optimal nutrition. And what they found is basically the fountain of youth. If you cut the calories of even a normal diet, a normal, awful American diet, you actually can extend life and delay disease, enhance performance, optimize weight, enhance skin. The list is pretty long, just like the fountain of youth, right? If you did that. But people don't want to be hungry. But in this case, a lot of people did this fountain of youth nutrition, and they found over time in a lot of studies on this area, they found like sugar, for instance. Okay, when you do calorie restriction, the cell division pace is very slow. Okay, so cells through cellular apoptosis divide, create a new cell, die. Create a new cell, die. That's the whole process of life. Well, interestingly, we found that increasing insulin levels, which is from eating sugar or white carbohydrates, everything increases insulin, but these are significant, that you actually speed that pace of cellular apoptosis. So when you consider lifespan, when you speed the pace of cellular apoptosis, you literally condense lifespan into a shorter time frame, like to say 75 years or whatever the 77 years, whatever the average length of death in the United States is. So when you eat terribly, you have junk food, you have high sugar, high glycemic food, you actually speed the pace of your youthful life, and you shorten the youthful calendar, if you will. And so the diseases of aging that you often see in some studies at 120 years old, you actually now see in the 70s or even the 60s. And so it's really fantastic how the negative things you can do can negatively impact your skin. So the positive things you can do, like having really excellent nutrition and having all the essential vitamins and minerals and essential fats and the right hydration and clean air and fresh water, when you consider all of those, it's very youthful to your skin, to your hair, skin, and your nails. Think about it. Very youthful. In fact, these essential vitamins and minerals are required as the building blocks of these areas of your life. So when you consider the difference in someone, and someone like you look very young, and obviously that's why you're doing this skin thing. If you go to the people you graduated high school with, and you go look at them right now beside you, you often will find an example of you who looks well beneath your age versus someone who looks well above their age. So we're just talking about appearance now. I mean, if you see it on the outside, you can only imagine this is actually what's happened on the inside. So I normally focus on the inside because the best skin health program exists is internal, not external. But if you think about this, you may well, let's just say that you're 15 years below your actual age as far as your youthful appearance. But there are also people that are 15 years above their actual age as far as youthful appearance. It wouldn't be youthful, but you know what I'm saying. So even in that example, 15 years equals a 30-year difference in youthful appearance. So do you want to look like you're 40 or do you want to look like you're 70? You can do that at the same age. And this is the point I'm trying to make here, is that nutrition has an extraordinary impact on your health, but so do these other keys. But I'm going to focus back into nutrition now, just trying to make the point. If you're stressed, you don't sleep as well. If you don't sleep well, you're stressed. Either way, you're messing up your hormones, and your skin is going to be it's going to show it. And so even in the environmental hazards section, I talk about that if you have toxins in your body, where they will come out, obviously normal elimination, but sweat and normal elimination and through your skin. So toxins will show in your skin because your body's going to get rid of them one way or the other. So that's enough of the 7 keys. My book, The SuperHealth Diet, the last diet you'll ever need, goes over those 7 keys in more detail and tells you how to optimize those areas. But let's focus in on nutrition here, since that's where our primary expertise is. So nutrition, we talked about calorie restriction, back in the 70s, there was the Biosphere Project where they literally, Dr. Roy Wolford from UCLA took a team in there, and they were basically growing their own food. And this was a project about sustainability. And they realized that they miscalculated, or they had some malfunction, and they couldn't grow nearly enough food. So they were intended that they would just decide to either eat 50% less food, or they would shorten the project, and they decided to eat less food. Well, there were so many positive physiological and psychological changes associated with less food that it really spawned a movement, the calorie restriction movement. You literally would find groups of people that looked like they were in a concentration camp. They're so skinny and whatever they think. So we in America oftentimes take things to excess. If not eating food was good for you, then the people in Africa that are starving would be the healthiest people in the world. So there's some balance between eating less food and not eating too much food versus, just really depriving yourself. But I thought that was fascinating. Now, when they came out of there, they combined calorie restriction, cutting the calories, with optimizing the nutrients, which was really the fascinating calorie restriction with optimal nutrition. That really had legs. And Dr. Roy Wolford wrote a book called The 120-Year Diet maybe 20 years ago, which is still very valid today and fantastic to read if you like that kind of read. Highly scientific. But the point I'm making here is now if you take this cutting the calories and maxing out the nutrients together, you really have something that's worth doing. Because if you max out the nutrients properly, meaning you have enough protein and enough fiber, then you actually now have satisfied the hunger and cravings aspect of it and the needs of the body. So if you can get all the micro and macronutrients you need and still cut the calories, that is a powerful, life-extending, skin-enhancing, beauty-enhancing approach. So now scientists that are credible will never argue that calorie restriction with optimal nutrition doesn't work. Everyone knows it works. The question now is, why does it work? Well, there's a group out there basically going on the free radical theory of aging, saying, well, if you cut the calories, you actually cut the combustion or the byproducts of energy metabolism, and therefore less food equals longer life and all these benefits from calorie restriction. Conversely, you could just raise the broad spectrum antioxidant level and get a similar result. So they did studies and they showed, yeah, that's true. If you did that, you would get similar results to calorie restriction. So now it's not to argue about calorie restriction working, it's now why it's working. And so the other group is, if you cut the sugar and the glycemic response, we can get similar results to calorie restriction with optimal nutrition. And they actually showed that to be true also. They did studies of 150% of a greens type diet, of the calorie restriction diet, and they still were able to get the responses from calorie restriction. Fascinating. Lower the sugar, lower the glycemic response. And the other one that was really powerful is there was a study primarily on essential fatty acids, particularly omega-3, fish oil, marine-based fish oil. So if you can add fish oil to an otherwise unhealthy diet, that you could get similar results to calorie restriction without making all these changes. And they were able to show that you could get similar results and make no other dietary changes, which means basically you can eat like an idiot and take enough fish oil, you could actually get profound positive results in health and skin. So coming back to skin. So there was a study in Journal of Nutrition 2001, which really brings this all to life. In the first group of mice, they let them eat all they want whenever they want. It was a polyunsaturated diet, low omega-3, and they ate all the time, and they live an average of 232 days. So that was fascinating. And then they took the same feeding method and the same food, and they fed these next group of mice all they wanted, but they added fish oil to the same diet. They lived an average of 100 days longer than the first group. So the third group, they would take the same food, but they would cut the calories by 40%. So they cut the calories by 40%, and they got 200 days longer than the 232-day control. So they lived 200 days longer than a 232-day group just by eating less of the same garbage food. So the next group was the same food as the third group. They cut the calories 40%, but they also added fish oil, and they lived an average of 400 days longer than a 232-day control. Now, I tell you this because it's terrific for your health. But what's terrific for your health is terrific for your skin. And I know this is a glowing skin report. So what we learned from that, and what we learned from that, I wrote a white paper on it in the early 90s, that was the 4 corners of superfood nutrition, which included how you can incorporate low-calorie, nutrient-dense, optimal nutrition with high broad-spectrum antioxidants, low sugar, low glycemic response, and also with the healthy fats. And so that is the program that we say that we try to teach all the time, and it's helped so many people through so many health situations, but it also makes your skin look young and healthy because it is young and healthy.
Okay, wow, that is such a remarkable journey that you're going through. Your incredibly noble endeavor, with trying to help your wife, and also this incredible wealth of information that you are sharing with the audience. I think that is really amazing work that you've been doing.
Well, thank you.
Oh, yes, of course. And so how did you find all the right proper blends that you use in order to create the Living Fuel mix?
Well, it's really powerful because the concept within the Four Corners concept is called the superfood nutrition. And the concept of superfood nutrition is recognizing that science is really, really behind in our understanding of nutrition. Now, dietetics and dietitians, they don't teach real nutrition. They teach calories and they teach macronutrient balances and that sort of thing. But as far as clinical nutrition, it does not teach clinical nutrition. So what is important? Well, if you use the model of really healthy food, like broccoli and spinach and kale and barley grass and blueberries and strawberries and raspberries, cranberries, you're finding foods that are just teeming with nutrition. But they don't have enough protein, for instance. Because see, clean air, fresh water, and nitrogen are three things that people think just happen, and they don't do anything to make them happen. But we'll talk about water in a minute because hydration is super important. But clean air, obviously, you would think obviously, but that nitrogen piece is what I'm talking about. You're not getting nitrogen unless you're eating protein. So the people who don't eat protein are not getting nitrogen of any level because a protein we eat for essential amino acids and for nitrogen. That's why we eat it. It's in the amino acids. So missing nitrogen is a big piece of the equation for health. But back to the skin and how the nutrition plays a role here is that food brings incredible nutrition, or it used to at least. Like there are places in the United States who have reasonable amounts of selenium level in the soil, but it really is only 10% of the United States of America. For instance, if you get your produce from California, Southern California, like a lot of produce comes from the United States, or in Florida, or in Georgia, or in Texas, you're not getting any selenium to speak of. So that's just one example. There are a lot of examples of these trace minerals that just don't exist in the soil. So people say, get your nutrients from food. Well, you can only get some nutrients from food. It's really important that you get 7 to 10 cups of vegetables a day. Most people don't. It's just for potassium levels alone. But when you consider potassium as one example I'm talking about, is that potassium is the driver, or one of the two drivers of what's called the sodium-potassium pump. Most people haven't heard of this, but essentially that is what makes your heart beat. There's a tension between the polarities of sodium and potassium, sodium being in the cell, potassium being out, and they basically pull on each other, and they literally cause the heart to beat. And so when people eat 3,500 milligrams of sodium a day and 1,000 milligrams of potassium a day, you basically have inverted the ratio of the sodium-potassium pump, making it very ineffective. So what do I mean by that? You should have, according to the RDAs, US RDAs, 4,700 milligrams of potassium a day. Now, when you consider that, that requires approximately 10 cups of green vegetables a day. So when you consider the sodium, you're supposed to get 2,400 milligrams of sodium a day, but most people on the average eat 3,500 milligrams a day. So you're getting more than the RDA of sodium and wildly less, maybe 25% of the RDA of potassium. Then people are told, well, your blood pressure is high, you need to go lower your salt intake. No, it doesn't work that way. The salt intake maybe need to be lowered to a reasonable amount, but the problem is that the potassium is not there. So taking scientific pieces, now I want to say sodium-potassium pump is not just the heart. Every cell uses a sodium-potassium pump to insert nutrition into the cell. So you have this pump where it will take certain nutrition into the cell, and this is every cell in the body. So again, this is one example of a deficiency that is in just about everybody watching right now. So when you consider, you asked about superfood nutrition takes into account that people aren't eating 10 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, or vegetables, not fruits. People aren't eating 10 servings of greens a day. So they are most assuredly not getting their daily potassium. Now, if you eat a whole avocado every day, you're getting 950 milligrams. Okay, people say, hey, what's the best source of potassium? They'll say a banana. Banana has 300 milligrams of potassium. You cannot get there with a banana. If you did, you would have so much sugar, you wouldn't want to be there. So the point is, superfood nutrition takes into account that, yes, we need all these phytochemicals in the greens, and we need the macro minerals also. They're really micros, but macros being that they're over 1,000 milligrams a requirement a day. So you take the greens and all the various kinds of greens and vegetables, and you combine with that natural forms of minerals and vitamins and antioxidants and all these other things that will get the body up to the levels it requires to thrive. Because if your body is trying to fight off nutrient deficiencies, it manifests in symptoms of disease. I mean, we know, like the US RDAs, they say, oh, well, I got 100% of my multivitamin. Well, US RDA of vitamin C is 60 milligrams. All that says is that in the literature, if you take 60 milligrams of vitamin C every day, the chance of you getting scurvy is minimized. Okay, so it's a disease specific. If you don't, you will have this disease possibility. That's why they put these low numbers. But everybody in nutrition knows 60 milligrams is wildly deficient amount of vitamin C for anybody to take for health purposes. So if you want to thrive, the number is always above RDA. So what we've done is we combine broccoli, spinach, kale, spirulina, barley grass, beet, blueberry, strawberry, raspberry, cranberry, organic. Combine all these things together with proper amounts of fiber, proper amounts of protein, proper amounts of micronutrients, of the ones that science shows us, hey, you need more B12, we put more B12, methylcobalamin. Hey, you need more vitamin C, you need more D3, you need more this. We put it in at levels that science has shown us is ideal for humanity. And we have commissioned the research to know these numbers better than it's been done out there. There's no published report that tells what we know based on the studies that we've commissioned. So combining these amazing superfoods in nature with these amazing natural forms of coenzyme vitamins and the cofactors to the minerals, which are recognized by your Krebs cycle, which is called citric acid cycle. So if your vitamins and minerals have oxides and carbonates and things along those lines, that means it's a cheap product and you probably don't want to be eating it. So that, in answer to your question, it's a very scientific answer. I'm sorry, but you almost have to go there for people to understand that just eating a regular breakfast, lunch, and dinner is just not going to get you there.
Oh, yes, of course. That is definitely something that I'm sure a lot of the audience thinks about as well, about how powdered drinks versus receiving it from their own food can be different, because that's the what most people call the norm, and also what people have mentioned as being the best source of nutrition.
Well, freeze drying foods is really interesting. People say, I want to get it right from the grocery store. Well, the grocery store had it picked probably 2 weeks prior to them getting it. And then if they had, sometimes you have to gas it to get the color to change, but even the organic vegetables are shipped and allowed to ripen off of the vine. So that by the time you get it, and by the time it's washed 3 times, it is nutrient depleted. So you really have to eat a lot more of that in order to get what it originally intended to start with, at least double. So it's not 7 servings or 10 servings, it's 15 or 20 servings. So it's really a problem. What we do in freeze drying is we take vine ripe ingredients, produce, and freeze dry it into a powder, locking in the peak of nutrient value. And then we add in these various nutrients to make it extraordinary.
Oh, yes, of course. So how do you manage to keep it fully dense with all of the nutrients possible through freeze drying and powdering it?
That's the way you do it. You put it, freeze dry it, and then you package it with oxygen and moisture absorbers so that it holds that state for a very long time. In fact, if you have a bomb shelter, that's what you want in your bomb shelter. Freeze-dried foods.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not planning on any bomb shelters anytime soon.
Well, sometimes the bomb is a hurricane in Houston, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, when I say bomb, there's a lot of things that can happen. Power could go out for a month. You're gonna have to have some food.
Oh, yes, of course. That does make a lot of sense too. So how is it that you are able to obtain all the nutrients from all these foods, plus extra nutrients that were not already within the group of mixture of foods that you were already putting in, because you mentioned you put in extra nutrients in there as well?
Well, you know, essentially, food industry has known the value of this for a long time. They do it very poorly and they do it very insufficiently. So for instance, bread has always had B vitamins infused into it because B vitamins are bread makes your B vitamins even lower. So they have to have B vitamins, thiamine, B1, B2. They have to have the various B vitamins in there. So like milk puts calcium and vitamin D in the milks, right? So many foods are, quote, fortified. But the thing is that they use the cheapest possible nutrients to fortify. The body doesn't recognize these unnatural states. So what we've done is we've examined the research. We know, or obviously the research is very clear that the mineral substrates that are recognized in the body are citrate, malate, alpha-ketoglutarate. There are certain ones that are natural. And so when your body sees these in the cycle, it knows what to do with them. But when you have things like oxides and carbonates, the body basically goes, what in the world is this? And they have to figure out the body has to figure out how to convert it into something that's recognized by the body. So vitamin D, and there's forms that are like cholecalciferol would be the vitamin D that you'd be looking for. And so we know what these are in science. In nutrition, we know what the right ones are, but companies don't use them because they're too expensive. For instance, our B vitamins, methylcobalamin, costs us well in excess of $1,000 a kilo, whereas most multivitamins use a version that it costs $100 or $50 a kilo because it's much cheaper, because they're going to let the body convert it hopefully at some point and end up with vitamin D. So there's a lot of junk associated with these conversions that are unnecessary in the body. And so all we've done is taken the highest quality known and the science around how much to use and combine it with what isn't known about broccoli, spinach, kale, spirulina, these superfoods that have things in them that we know are essential. They have cofactors that are essential, conditionally essential nutrients, and conditionally essential cofactors, not to mention essential nutrients that we haven't even named yet. So that's why we use this process, which we have deemed superfood nutrition.
Oh, yes, of course. That is quite an amazing feat that you have done with your company and Living Fuel.
Well, the other thing is that people want to look younger. If they really want to look younger, they're going to consider what they're putting into their mouth. Okay, so the skin of their mouth, there's so many things that you take that actually aggravate even like people's gums hurt when they stop eating it, but they'll put it in their mouth. I guess my point is that your skin is a part of the process of anything you eat, starting with your lips, right? And the internal organ of the esophagus, the throat, that's internal by most perspectives, but many of us in health, we view that as external because it's from the mouth to where it comes out is all sealed from the inside of the body. So it's really a skin that you're trying to help there. And so getting all the nutrients are important to skin, getting hydration is important to skin, but if you don't take your omega-3s, your marine-based fish oil, not your omega-3 from plants, from flax, from chia. Those are good, but they're not going to get you what you need regarding the skin health, because every cell membrane has a oil component to it, including the skin. There's a phospholipid barrier in the skin so that when you get water, it just doesn't go all the way in and just leave you soggy all the time. But if you stay in the pool for an hour, you'll see how the layer is broken down a little bit and you get a little prunish, right? So the phospholipid layer, the brain is made of it. Every cell needs it. So taking your fish oil is super duper important. And people need to consider taking a high quality fish oil with significant antioxidants. And the other piece we talked about, hydration. Just drinking your favorite drink is liquid is not hydration. I mean, people drink tap water all the time. Well, tap water causes the death of microbes in the gut because it has chlorine and fluorine and fluoride, or fluorine and all these chemicals you hardly can name, but they literally, why you put it in your pool is so it kills the pathogens. It kills the good and the bad. So the chlorine and stuff in your pool kills pathogens, and that's what happens in the gut. I talk about the gut being an external organ, just like the outside skin. Well, used to be, or even still today, that dermatology in America will tell you don't put oil on your skin because the molecules are too big and it won't go past the phospholipid layer. But we learn now that even the ancient techniques that they used to do of putting coconut oil in the skin, and I'm talking about ancient techniques, are now being validated, but for different reasons. See, putting MCT oil on your skin may not be fully absorbed, but what it does is it feeds the friendly bacteria on your skin, creating healthy skin, and it literally feeds that bacteria and causes the skin to be much more healthy. So there's so many bacteria in your skin that are important, and when you wash your hands all the time, you don't replenish the biotics, if you will, then you cause all kinds of health problems to the skin. Same thing in the gut. People all the time are drinking tap water or things that kill gut organisms, and they don't realize it's the same thing as washing your hands too much, and it causes all kinds of health problems, and the health of your skin is compromised.
Oh, yes, of course. That is definitely very useful advice. I'm sure the audience would definitely appreciate and love that. So can you also explain to us about when it comes to Living Fuel, how do you make your powdered drinks to taste good?
Well, that's a trick in all and of itself, because some of the stuff in it does not taste good at all. In fact, if you had it on the side and you just ate some of these things, you'd say it's impossible to mix them together in a way that tastes good. But over the last 16 years, we've just become good at it. That when you put together an antioxidant, it is so bitter with something else that is actually has a different sulfur taste, for instance. And it's amazing how you can combine things that individually taste awful and put them together, and you get a neutral blend, and then the power of the berries takes over, the power of the greens takes over, and so you get the nasty taste and stuff to neutral, and then you put in things that have a lovely natural taste, and you end up with something that's pretty awesome.
Oh, yes, that's really great, because I'm sure that's something that a lot of people in the audience would care about as well. Taste does matter, which is funny. So can you also explain how you can make it taste less powdery?
Well, the fact freeze drying is a pretty good process, because by the time you rehydrate, it comes back to life, if you will. So if you just like mix it in water and drink it right away, sometimes people say, well, it has a little powdery effect, but it hasn't fully hydrated yet. So if you wait just a couple moments, or you make it in the blender and drink it, it's just like the loveliest smoothie you ever had.
Oh, yes, of course. And so can you also explain, because there's so many different recipes that you also have on your website, how did you come up with those?
Well, my kids actually were the ones, and my wife took Living Fuel while she was pregnant with the last three of our kids anyway, and it was our kids' first food after breast milk. And so the kids would drink it straight with coconut milk to start with, or goat milk, and then as they became older, they wanted to start experimenting, so they blend in some strawberries or blend in some whatever the case may be. And so we started publishing the recipes they used, and people loved them. And so essentially, when you start with Living Fuel, we always say start with a blender smoothie, and with one of the recipes, so that we know you're going to absolutely love it. Within a very short period of time, your body will start demanding the level of nutrition that's in it, and you'll care less and less about what you put in it, and end up shaking it in a cup with just water or coconut milk or something like that. So that's the way it all got started.
Oh, yes, and some of them are really good. I've noticed that, so I have tried to mix in some of the flavors with, which is very similar to some of the recipes as well. So I totally understand how that goes.
Awesome, awesome.
Yes, of course. So how does drinking Living Fuel benefit the skin?
Well, that's the skin is the organ that's going to show you how healthy you are. So ultimately, if your cells are healthy, your skin is going to be healthy. So you can put all kinds of masking agents or whatever that people put on their skin, but it's really temporary benefit, and sometimes it's just aesthetic benefit. But what happens internally in your cells when you have vibrant health, and you're promoting optimal hormone production and balance, and you're promoting, you're getting all of the nutrients that your body requires to thrive, that your skin will be the reflection of the internal health. So you get healthy to have skin health, and that is the trick. And so Living Fuel is, without question, the most nutritious food that exists. If you had a team of organic chefs at your home, you cannot put together a meal that's going to match the nutritional benefit of Living Fuel. So people always report back to us after being on Living Fuel for a short period of time. Wow, I have great improvement in my hair, skin, nails, digestion, elimination, energy levels, optimized weight, those kind of things, because that's just what happens when you have food that is designed with every known nutrient at the levels designed for optimal health.
Oh, yes, of course. And that's definitely very helpful and very useful.
And the other thing to point out is that Living Fuel is the only whole meal superfood that exists. There are other things out there called meal replacements or green drinks or berry drinks or whatever. These are basically salads. I mean, a meal replacement could be anything. It could just be a protein drink that makes you full. But you have to have all 53 essential nutrients plus another 40 or so trace elements, essential trace elements, plus a gambit of antioxidants of all 5 classes: hydroxyl, peroxyl, peroxide nitrite, superoxide, anom, and singlet oxygen. The gambit of antioxidants to all in order to thrive. So it requires more than just, somebody telling you we mindlessly combined 1,000 different ingredients in this 9-gram serving, and basically you're getting a decent salad at best. This is like a whole meal, a whole organic multi-course meal versus a salad. And any one of them you name out there, there is not a single product that comes anywhere close to the nutritional profile of Living Fuel. Doesn't exist.
Oh yes, and that definitely helps make Living Fuel stand more on its own as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, of course. So please share with us, what are you most proud of from 2017?
Well, we just more lives changed, and that's what we do. Our mission is to change lives, and that's our only mission. We don't have a mission of selling a certain number of Living Fuel, or our mission is simply to change lives, and that's what we're doing on a daily basis. And the feedback we get, it's becoming exponential, and we're just going to keep going because that's what drives us.
Oh yes, of course. That is truly a noble endeavor and amazing work that you guys have been doing.
Thank you so much for that.
Oh yes, of course. And so please also tell us, what are you most excited about for 2018?
Well, 2018, we have a number of products coming out that are just really unusual, very unusual products, like microfuel, for instance, that we could actually provide the level of micronutrients. Because see, what we just talked about was general nutrition, and people know they need protein and fats and carbohydrates and plus micronutrients. But what we discovered over time, I even wrote about this in my book, The SuperHealth Diet, The Last Diet You Ever Need, that you could actually provide the body all the micronutrients it needs. Because see, the reason you eat protein is for amino acids and nitrogen. The reason you eat fats are for the fatty acids and so on. The reason you eat carbohydrates technically would be for the, some people would say for the carbohydrates if you're doing a carbohydrate type diet, but at least fiber, okay? So fiber is the primary benefit to carbohydrate if you're fueled properly. And so my point is that if you gave the micronutrients of the food that you're eating, so in other words, everything you eat is for a reason other than the food itself. So if you eat protein, the body takes that protein, takes out the essential amino acids, and builds muscle and tissue and hormones and so on. That's what every food is, raw material for your body to do what it does. But if you could actually extract the raw materials out of the food before you eat it and give it in certain amounts, you could actually thrive with almost no calories in your body whatsoever. It's pretty extraordinary. So that's kind of one of the things we're doing. We have multiple other things that are also really unusual that we're coming out with, and so 18 is going to be an awesome year.
Oh yes, that sounds actually very amazing and very exciting, and something that I'm sure a lot of people would love to try as well.
Oh yes.
Yes. So please tell us about your free gift.
Today we're going to offer the SuperHealth Diet, The Last Diet You Ever Need, with any order. So it's a $25 value. Just make an order of anything at Living Fuel, and we'll add that with our compliments.
Yes, if you would like access to that free gift, be sure to write down the glowing skin code with any order, and you can also be sure to receive a copy of that free book.